Good day to you, Jason here, Birchfield Family Farm. We are in Oxford, Ohio, running grass-fed Red Devon cattle, St. Croix sheep, chickens, and Idaho pasture pigs in a rotational grazing system. Good word for the day comes from Proverbs 14:4. Where there are no oxen, the manger is empty, but from the strength of an ox comes an abundant harvest. Had friends share that with us this past week, and how appropriate here. We just received our steer back, our steer named Petey. Got him back from the processor. We're going to be going over all of those numbers today, as cost, the meat quantity we received back, how much space that takes up in the freezer, and potential profitability. A cattle move on these Red Devon cattle, and then we'll get into the numbers on Petey the steer. Okay, it is an absolutely nasty day today. We are going from paddock 6 onto paddock 7 here. Getting down to bare bones here. Not a whole lot left. But yeah, we got a little bit of rain coming down, 40s and 15-mile-an-hour wind here. So we're gonna keep this quick. Come on, cows. I apologize, but can't get Sam up in the air today with the rain. Can't really take the drone out in the rain, so is what it is. Come on, Hanker. Get these guys into this. Oh yeah, they're chomping. We got a little bit here. About 40 days of rest here on this paddock 7, doing just about daily moves. Try and keep them here any longer than that, and they're honking and hollering. So I'll get this water and mineral moved. Just a wonderful sound here, them chomping away, looking everybody over, looking pretty good. I did notice Emma, it's got a little bit of some discharge from the eye there, but she's been in the mineral. You can tell maybe the salt there. I'm not seeing any kind of anything suspect with that eye. I think she's just got had some tears probably from the wind and gotten that mineral. And Joy looking good. Big Pat there, he's had his head in the mud. Yeah, these guys are looking good. So we get a fair amount of people asking us here, why Red Devon? Why did you guys choose the breed? A million different breeds out there. Why the Devon? They're not super popular nowadays. So why do we go with those? Well, if you do your research back in the 1950s, the Red Devons were actually disqualified from the feedlots because they put on too much fat in a feedlot type of setting. And that's when you're doing all grass-fed, minimal inputs, being able to put on fat and to fatten up cattle just off of grass is very important. What happens if you don't get the fat cover right? Well, you can get a gamey, kind of swampy tasting meat. Certainly don't want that. So you've got to have some fat on the carcass. And the Devons, the old joke is, the Devons can fatten off tree bark. And we really have found that to be true here. Take a little bit longer on the grass-fed side, but you're going to get a carcass that's a little bit bigger than a Dexter, but smaller than a lot of the commercial cattle breeds, Angus, Hereford, etc. So the other thing I liked about him was just the history, especially as it relates to our country. And they came over here, with the Pilgrims, and a lot of these animals were triple purpose, really: meat, milk, and draft. A lot of them pulled wagons on the Oregon Trail. George Washington ran these Devons on his farm, and so just a lot of really cool history there too with the Devon breed. But point is, they've been here in North America and are very, very well adapted to our area here. And just other advantage too is just extremely hardy. I've never had a hoof issue. Rarely have eye issues. Just very, very hardy and able to thrive and fatten up on all grass. All right, let's head over to the barn here, get out of this weather, and talk about this meat yield on Petey the steer. Petey was born here November 15th, 2021. We named him Petey because he the birth event, he came shooting out. We called him Pistol Pete. It was a fun experience. We all got to experience that out on pasture. Emma had him, and he's been a great animal, great steer, all 100% grass-fed, raised here. It's a womb to tomb kind of a thing here, right? Raised him up, born here, and then of course took him to processor at the end of September. So he would have been about 3 years, 10 months old, somewhere in there, which is, that's too old. It's beyond really what the length of time that we want to raise them here. I think, only doing 2 hay seasons, getting to about max, 30, 32 months, so we don't have to do that third hay season is really where we'd like to be. But let's go over his numbers, costs, profitability, how much space it takes up in the freezer. Let's head into the barn here and take a look. Okay, so this is our freezer. It's a Frigidaire 24.8 cubic foot freezer, deep freeze. And taking a look inside here, this is just Petey in here. Okay, it's a little bit of a mess right now. We just got it unloaded here, but basically there's eight of this size box in here. He came in 9, but we've kind of have thrown some stuff on the top here. But I want you to plan on, for talking about space requirements, plan on 9 of these boxes here. Boxes are 14 inches by 22.5 inches by 6 inches deep. Okay, and again, 9 of those. So I'm estimating about 60%, or about 15 cubic feet is the space required to have one full Red Devon steer in your freezer. A few things that I like, a few things that I don't like about this particular processor. We really like that the ground beef comes in these 1-pound packs and they're square. And so really efficient use of space. 45 pounds there in each box. So they stack really well. If you get the 1-pound tubes of ground, there's no way it's gonna stack that efficiently in your freezer. Mixed feelings on the vacuum sealed packages here. We had a couple of packages on the high end cuts, a couple of ribeyes I noticed that they just didn't vacuum seal all the way. So I would imagine you're going to have that, but it's a shame that it was on some of the higher end cuts. I think everything was packaged really well here. Pot roast. Looking over some of this stuff, we did get the beef heart, soup bones. Got some stew meat, and we'll go over all of these numbers and everything we got back. Okay, let's get into the numbers side of this. Here, I'm going to put a spreadsheet up. Feel free to screenshot this or do with it what you will. Here, let's go over this sheet here on what this steer actually yielded. I listed these items pretty much by their total value and greatest to least here. And one thing I should note too before we get into this, I did, for pricing here, I did go on and just looked at comparable, ground beef sales and quality and pricing, right? So I'm looking at sites like Seven Sons, White Oak Pastures, local sales here as well, but it needs to be in the grass-fed, 100% grass-fed, grass-finished vein, because that's what we're doing here, and so it needs to be priced accordingly. So that first item there, ground beef, 180 pounds of ground we got back. A price there, $11.12 per pound. Okay, that's an average between White Oak Pastures and Seven Sons. We probably would not actually be that high when we sell ours, though it's just amazing to me, some of these prices that I'm coming across online now. It's been a few years since we've had our last animal that went in was a bull, and been a few years since we've priced this out, and I cannot believe how much prices have risen. Anyhow, on that ground there, a couple grand value there. Everything, bone-in ribeye, sirloin, roast, filet, New York strip. You can go down there and take a look at those prices here. But what I really wanted to get into here were the totals. Petey's live weight when he went in was 1,205 pounds. He hung or had a hanging weight 649 pounds. A hanging weight to live weight ratio was 54%. Now, you guys have heard me talk about, being in that 60 to 62% range. That was actually a mistake on my part. That range there is mainly for grain-fed beef. So from what I'm coming across, anything in that mid 50% range on grass-fed seems like you're doing okay. If you have experience with that, chime in here, tell me how wrong I am. We came away with actually 338.77 pounds of actual meat. Total retail value on that was $6,325.39. Let's move over to costs. The costs that I'm estimating here, we had to take him through 3 hay seasons, and assuming our hay cost is about $100 a ton, I'm going to say, he was probably somewhere between 3 and 5 tons. Let's just say that the top end of that, let's say 5 tons, let's say $500 on the hay cost. Mineral there just took our this past year's mineral cost, or what we consumed, what we paid in mineral cost, and then took his live weight, 1205, and took that as a percentage of our entire flurd. Basically cattle and sheep, about 14,000 pounds, I'm estimating. So 1205 over 14,000 pounds, and then took that percentage and applied it to the mineral times 3, for 3 years. The first year, not a whole lot of mineral consumption going on. He's getting most of what he needs there from mama. So processing, so $796.50. Water, 20 gallons a day, probably on average, taking our water costs there over almost 4 years there, $191.50. So our total costs out the door on this guy, now these are operating costs, guys, okay? $1,805.86. So these operating costs do not include things like infrastructure, capital costs, fencing, land. We've got truck, trailer, tractor, bush hogging. There are many, many, many more costs that go into this other than what I am giving here. Okay, so know that. But when we look at this, you may be tempted to look at this and say, whoa, $6,300 retail value, north of $6,300 and only, $1,800 in cost. But remember, this is also spread out over almost 4 years. Could you make a little money off beef? Sure, but keep in mind, not including the capital costs here and also spreading this over 4 years. But keeping a herd of 2 dozen head of cattle can certainly be profitable. We had a bull that went in, and he went in a few years back, and he was around the same age, but he was an intact bull. So let's talk about the difference between a steer and a bull. So a bull is going to be intact, meaning he still has testicles. But a steer is actually castrated. So we castrated Petey at 1 day old. And when you castrate that young, typically you don't need shots. We did not do any of that, and he was just fine. We did something called banding, which is just a rubber band around the testicles. It cuts off circulation, they fall off. But why do that? What's the difference? Well, we can see here in these numbers, so our original bull, he weighed 1260. So we got back 386 pounds of meat out of him. He hung at 737.5 pounds, so he was almost a 59% hanging weight to live weight. So what's the difference there? The difference is a bull is going to have a lot more muscling than a steer. And so we castrate the bull, the male animal in the beginning, if we don't, number one, don't want that animal to potentially reproduce, or number two, we're strategically raising that animal for meat. So, we're going to have, the theory is we're going to have a little bit less muscling and a little more fat. So again, with the grass-fed, you absolutely have to get that fat right. You have to have fat on the carcass. That animal has to be finished correctly grass-fed, or it will come out gamey tasting. It just will not be right. And even when we do get the fat right, it is always going to be leaner than a grained beef. So this is the American palate here, okay, and it's something that I think is a fair struggle right now with regenerative farms, raising more heritage breed animals. We have to educate the consumer that, hey, this isn't going to taste like a juicy, greasy, McBurger from fast food. This is going to be, but it's going to be a healthier meat, higher omega-3s, animals raised outside. I think in addition to being grass-fed, for us, one way we differentiate ourselves is that we do offer this free choice mineral program. And I think, just looking at a lot of the autoimmune conditions now, having a fully mineralized beef animal, that's one way that we do differentiate ourselves within that grass-fed vein even. So we pay for that, but that's something that I really, really believe in. We've seen soil test results, what we were deficient in the soil, the pasture soil. We've seen that line up actually with what the cattle are consuming. That's when I became a believer in the free choice mineral. So we do pay for that, but something we obviously believe in here. But that's kind of the difference between a bull and a steer and kind of why we do that. I'll pull a few of these steaks here. Let's just kind of look them over. Okay, so just having a look here at this bone-in ribeye. Definitely fat in there. Definitely have some marbling. What I was amazed by, looking at a few of these over, is when we put our grass-fed meat right next to grain-fed meat, and just how greasy the grain-fed meat was, and how much it would drip, and then ours didn't hardly drip at all. Now that was also on that bull. But looking at this, the other difference was the color difference. You can see how just absolutely red, this stuff is. This is I think this is the oxtail here. Let me get you a couple more cuts here, the higher end steak. 1 3/4 pound sirloin. You can see just how red this is, and that fat in there. I think we're going to be pretty happy. Of course, you got your brisket up here. So I really looking forward to tasting this stuff, and we will have some of this for sale locally. If you are in the area and you're interested, get a hold of us. We do not ship. I know I'll have people that ask that, so not at this time. We just don't need to do that. So some of the things that we liked and disliked with the actual processing of the animal, again, kind of went over some of the vacuum sealing and a few of those packages failing. Love the fact that, we have a local processor here. They're literally, 4 or 5 miles away from the farm, so we don't have to haul very far. So that's very valuable. They've got a great big area when you pull in, where you can drop off, and it's very, very easy, convenient just to back up, drop the animal off. We did wait it was between 4 and 5 weeks before we had the meat back, after we dropped the animal off, which, I understand, they're busy. I like that. I like that because that's telling me that they're getting busier. People are liking their service. They're obviously good at what they do. As far as charges go, they were charging us $1 per pound hanging weight, which I appreciated just how simple that was. But then there was also, I think the kill fee, which has been changed, the terminology's been changed to a harvest fee, I believe. That I think is a minimum of $125 now. So, we came in just under, $800, I think it was. But, so pretty expensive, right, to have an animal done. One of the things that I really did not like, we have the beef processed by the pound, which requires a USDA inspection. If you don't want a USDA inspection, you can sell by the quarter animal. That's a whole different business model. Farmer drops the animal off at the processor, and then customer actually deals with the processor. Customer pays farmer and then deals with processor. The way that we're doing it, I believe that's called custom too on the quarter animal side, and it's not required to be USDA inspected. We're selling by the pound here off the farm, and so when you're going that route, you really need to be USDA inspected to be legal when you're selling by the pound. And so, you know, a little more expensive, a little more to that. But I like that kind of a model because it, you know, not everybody has gigantic freezers or freezer space, lots of freezer space, or lots of cash up front right now, you know, to be able to buy a quarter or a half an animal. You know, so folks can still come here and they can still have access to our healthy meat, just buying a few pounds at a time. You could come out here and buy a pound of ground beef, you know, if that's you know, what you wanted to do and was convenient for you and you didn't have the freezer space or cash. So I like that model. It gets us interacting with folks here on the farm. Usually when folks come here and place a smaller order, you know, they're after something else in addition to beef, you know, like our eggs, our chicken. I like that model for those reasons. However, you know, my daughter was wanting to try working the hide, and Petey, the steer, had a beautiful hide on him. And so, you know, asking to get that back was denied that hide. Something about the USDA processing that doesn't allow that hide to come back to me. I don't know the ins and outs of that. Maybe somebody on here will, but basically being told that if we had him custom processed, quarter and sold by the quarter, you know, we could get the hide back no problem. But with him being USDA, it wasn't possible. So, you know, a little bit of kind of puts me off a little bit, right? Because it's our animal, you know. And she did. We did have, my wife makes soap out of it renders the suet, the fat, makes tallow, and then makes a soap out of the tallow. So we did, in addition to the numbers I gave you, we did get some tallow back. Now, we always ask for the bones. She likes to make beef broth out of the bones, and it always cracks me up, right? Because you got this 1,200-pound animal that goes in, and we get like these two or three little teeny bags of bones that you get back, right? It's like, I took a 1,200-pound animal into you. Where did all the bones go? You know, but again, it probably hung up something to do with USDA inspection would be my guess, if I had to guess. So we do have a few bones, a little bit of suet, but no hide back. I think just looking forward, I would love to have, you know, like a little cool bot walk-in cooler space here, you know, where we already process our own chickens now, but be able to do our own beef. Eventually we'll get into doing our own lamb. Probably going to attempt some pork here this fall. I would love to get into being able to do our own on-farm. You have a whole nother set of issues there with regulations and legalities, though, and selling meat. Certainly not by the pound if we go that route. But the advantage there, right, is we can keep those parts of the animal that are valuable to us that we want to potentially use. So, you know, it's a mixed bag. Certainly happy and thankful to have, you know, 300 some odd pounds, or was it 338 pounds of meat in the freezer. That's a good feeling, a lot like having a full barn of firewood, right, going into winter. I hope this helped you today. I hope it kind of gives you some idea on meat yield, pricing, and profitability. And reach out if we can help, birchfieldfarms.com. Thank you for hanging out today. Hope today you're staying warmer than we are here. And be blessed. We will talk to you next time. Take care.